This loner protagonist never expected that even cheat skills in another world had to be fought over. All the powerful skills had already been taken by his classmates. In the end, he could only take the leftover trash skills and head into another world alone. Just 2.5 minutes earlier, he had only been sleeping at his desk. Then a magic circle suddenly appeared in the classroom. Since he had read plenty of Isekai novels, he instantly realized what was happening. But after being excited for only 2.5 seconds, he quickly calmed down. To him, instead of going to another world, staying on Earth and reading novels sounded way better. He tried to leave the classroom, but the classroom door had been locked by some mysterious force. Kicking it did nothing. Smashing it with a chair did not work either. As the magic circle grew brighter and brighter, he suddenly climbed onto the ceiling. Unfortunately, even that did not save him. When he finally came back to his senses, he was already inside a pure white space. Anyone could tell this had to be a god's domain. Just as he wondered why nobody else was there, a strange old man appeared not far away. Seeing him standing there alone, the old man hurried over in a panic. It turned out this old man was the god of that other world. He was shocked to see the boy still here. Everyone else had already left for the new world. Then, the god told him to hurry up and prepare for transfer. That meant choosing his abilities and skills. Right in front of him, a massive stone tablet suddenly rose up. Normally, each person had 50 points to allocate. They could use those points to gain skills and magic. That was basically the god's bonus for otherworlders. But because the protagonist arrived too late, almost all the powerful skills had already been taken by his classmates, leaving only garbage behind. There were still plenty of skills, but one glance showed they were all useless. For example, one skill made him roll dice for stat points. The equipment section was even more ridiculous. There was something called a villager set and contact lenses. Just hearing the names told him they were nothing good. It was honestly way too shabby. Anyone who had read novels knew the strong jobs had to be things like Holy Knight or Great Sage. And under martial arts, the only option left was staff techniques. Was he supposed to beat people up with a walking cane? The more he thought about it, the more speechless he became. Could he really fight in another world? With nothing but a cane, even things like health and walking counted as skills. With skills like these, he would die insanely fast. The magic section was no better. All 4 basic elemental magics had already been chosen. Only weak skills like temperature and movement were left. Even worse, there were skills suited for office workers. He wondered if he had to become a salaryman in another world before even graduating high school. After thinking it over, not a single skill looked appealing. He could not despise them any harder. What even is this? Come on. The god could not take it anymore. Embarrassed and furious, he dumped every remaining skill onto the protagonist and sent him straight to the other world. Just like that, every trash skill flooded into his body. He began his other world life on nightmare difficulty with a pile of garbage skills. After being transported, he found himself standing in the middle of a forest. There was not even a starter village. This was basically trying to kill him. He had arrived with no preparation at all. Then he noticed a bag on the ground. It was the villager set he had looked down on. But when he opened it, he discovered the bag was actually infinite storage. Inside were starter items like contact lenses. They clearly looked like leftovers. But since he had them, they were better than nothing. After putting on the equipment, he decided to check his status. But when he opened the information screen, the system told him to roll dice first. Apparently, his stats had to be decided by dice rolls. He was genuinely annoyed. Was he just cleaning out someone else's inventory? But there was no choice. If he wanted to survive, he had to roll. But what came out was not a number. It was 2 giant letters. A terrible image instantly appeared. In his mind, was he about to turn into that the moment he arrived? Seriously? Not that. Luckily, the system was still normal. It let him choose which stat to add it to. After thinking for a moment, he chose luck. After all, with enough luck, life would be much easier. After successfully adding the points, his full status finally appeared. It clearly showed his name, Haruka. Only then did he realize the M on the dice meant max. Although his luck had broken through the limit, his other stats were honestly painful to look at. Then he suddenly noticed that he had a very special ability. It was called Loner. Because he had been summoned separately, he could not form parties with others. In exchange, he could gain companions through encounters. For Haruka, this was basically the cherry on top. Even before being transported, he had already been the class loner. None of the small cliques had anything to do with him. Instead of getting close to them, he would rather spend that time reading novels. Unfortunately, thanks to this skill, he also had no chance of building a harem in another world. His most urgent priority now was finding a safe base. He needed a home of his own. So Haruka began exploring the forest. He discovered that visibility in the forest was terrible. It was nothing like the convenient forests in novels. If he ran into a monster, it would be even worse. Then he suddenly remembered the contact lenses. Once he put them on, the names and functions of every object appeared right in front of him. Haruka was shocked. He also wondered how the lenses worked. After checking the system, he learned the contact lenses had appraisal powers. After gaining this cheat ability, his search instantly became much smoother. He quickly found edible mushrooms. And because of his storage bag, no matter how much food he found, he could carry it all effortlessly. Soon, he found a small stream too. After drinking his fill, he discovered an empty cave nearby. It was perfect for a base. The item bag just happened to contain a tent and a lantern. Haruka immediately decided to stay there for the night. After lighting a campfire that night, he suddenly felt that these trash skills might not be so bad after all, maybe because he had been exhausted all day. He soon started getting sleepy. At first, he was worried that monsters might appear while he slept, but not even 2.5 seconds later, he was out cold. Luckily, nothing happened all night. That was thanks to the item's monster repelling effect, and his shut-in title. That title let him avoid danger while staying at home. The first thing Haruka did after waking up was make himself a fancy breakfast. Do not ask where the cookware came from. Of course, it was inside the villager set. It might not have any powerful weapons, but for surviving in the wild, it was honestly top tier. After eating and drinking, he needed to think about life from here on out. Haruka planned to live in the cave for now. That made food his first priority. Of course, he also had to prepare for possible monsters. Just as he thought that, the system suddenly detected an abnormal presence. Haruka peeked out from the bushes and saw 2 small goblins. Although they were not big, their stats were surprisingly high. At first, Haruka was a little scared, but he knew he would have to face monsters eventually. If he could not even beat basic goblins, then survival was impossible, so he used wrapping magic to cover a wooden stick in mana. Once he was ready, he charged out with lightning speed and knocked one goblin out with a single strike. The other goblin noticed him, but its movements were incredibly slow. Its attack pattern was also simple. Haruka immediately found an opening. After successfully defeating 2 goblins, evening had already arrived. His first successful battle greatly boosted his confidence. After returning to the cave, he ate another grilled mushroom feast. When he opened his status, he saw that both his level and stats had increased. That was more like it. By the 3rd day, Haruka was tired of mushrooms, so he wanted to hunt some animals. Before that, he decided to train properly. So Haruka started practicing his skills while fighting goblins. Now he no longer needed to ambush them from behind. He could easily defeat 2 goblins head-on. He was getting used to this. But when he encountered 3 goblins together, he still had to take a detour. Over the next few days, Haruka fought goblins during the day and studied magic at home at night. More accurately, he played a building game at home. By the 5th day, Haruka could finally defeat a goblin in one move. The cave's interior had also become much more luxurious. His life was finally getting on track, because his abilities had improved. His meals were no longer limited to mushrooms. He began catching wild animals in the forest. After finally catching a large white rabbit, he was about to head back and enjoy it, when he suddenly sensed an unknown presence. Looking closer, he realized they were classmates who had also been transported. But these were exactly the delinquents he wanted nothing to do with. He wanted to slip away quietly, but his instincts told him there were probably other classmates nearby. After activating clairvoyance, more classmates appeared within his vision. There was the Jaru group and the muscle guys. Of course, there were also the honor students led by the class rep. Among all of them, the person he wanted to see most was the class rep. After all, he and the class rep were childhood friends. So Haruka thought joining her might be the best choice. But before he had gone far, he hesitated. He felt his current life suited him best. This sense of freedom and isolation was perfect for a loner like him. How boring. Seriously boring. The boy never expected that the worst delinquents in the class would still keep their disgusting habits after arriving in another world. Not only did they choose the filthy charm and puppet skills, they even wanted to claim all the girls in class as their own harem. Not long before that, Haruka had discovered his classmates in the forest, but as a loner, he had no intention of going up and joining them. After all, solo clearing another world was the most comfortable way. Just as he was about to leave, he realized the delinquent group was getting closer to him. Since he had no time to run, Haruka simply jumped straight into the bushes. But they still heard the noise, just as the yellow-haired leader was about to discover Haruka. The rabbit Haruka had caught suddenly jumped out of the bushes. That saved Haruka's life. Seeing that it was just a forest rabbit, the group relaxed and left. The delinquents were talking by the river. Haruka was curious about their conversation, so he hid behind a tree nearby and listened in. He never expected that after arriving in another world, their minds were still completely filthy. They even started talking about the girls' bodies. The yellow-haired guy liked the vice class rep most. After all, her chest was practically deadly. Even in another world, she was top tier. The others had their own targets too. Haruka heard they were only making crude comments about girls, so he did not pay much attention. After all, the class rep would definitely stop them. She was the delinquent's greatest enemy. But at that moment, he suddenly heard the yellow-haired guy drag over someone named Tanaka. He asked whether using Tanaka's skill would let them do whatever they wanted to the girls. After hearing a definite yes, the yellow-haired guy and the others got extremely excited. Haruka did not take their conversation seriously. When the delinquent group got up and left, he also headed home. But once he returned, he discovered his loner skill had actually leveled up. Even though he had decided to clear this world alone, feeling himself drift farther from everyone still felt a little painful. Maybe this really was what being alone meant. But because he was still only level 3, it was probably caused by the useless and puppet skills. Useless made the user unable to focus on one thing, and unable to achieve greatness. As for puppet, it meant being controlled like a marionette. To put it simply, both were trash skills. Right now, the only way for Haruka to vent was by eating. Unfortunately, today's hunting result was 0, so once again, he could only eat mushrooms. And just like that, on the 7th night, sounds of fighting kept coming from the forest. Haruka was too annoyed to sleep, so he went out to check. He discovered the class Otaku group was fighting goblins. As an experienced other-world survivor, Haruka felt a little emotional watching them struggle. But after taking a closer look, he realized he was the clown. Each of them had a proper job class, and each had cheat-like exclusive skills. They were nothing like a small fry like him. But in the end, that was because every class group had its own strengths. Some were top athletes, others were fans of famous people. So Haruka's loner title really was not undeserved. Since these guys were otaku, they had probably seen plenty of Isekai anime. Haruka figured he did not need to worry about them. He was about to leave when the system suddenly detected danger. 2 goblins were sneaking up from behind. If their ambush succeeded, the otaku group would be done for. Although Haruka wanted to stay a loner, he remembered that back in class, these guys had lent him novels before, so he could not ignore them. He decided to help. 1, 2. As Haruka finished his fight, the otaku group also defeated the goblins. They never expected to run into Haruka here. After that, Haruka brought them to his secret base. Seeing the luxurious cave, the otaku were extremely jealous. They could barely believe this was a cave. Haruka then asked about the other classmates. He wanted to know why they were outside at night. It turned out the otaku group had fled, and the whole thing started the day everyone arrived in the forest. Because it happened so suddenly, nobody had been prepared. Most of the class panicked. Some were crying and others were calling for their parents. Only the otaku group stayed calm. They were already studying their skills. At that moment, the class rep stepped up and tried to calm everyone down. But then, a large group of goblins suddenly appeared. Even the class rep froze in fear. The girls in class were screaming and crying. The delinquents were even more useless. They were so scared they fell on their butts. At that moment, the otaku stood up like saviors. Seeing that they were only weak goblins, they immediately began attacking. Inspired by the otaku, the muscle guys joined the battle too. Together, they finally wiped out all the goblins. Afterward, to stay safe, everyone moved locations and settled by a river. They even built a camp there. The classmates helped one another, and the situation gradually improved. But not everyone was that united. For example, there were the delinquents and the Jara girls. Those girls had been spoiled too much. They did not want to work at all. Because of one bad group, the whole camp began falling apart. Everyone became scattered and disorganized. In the end, only the class rep, the otaku group, and a few other students kept working. The otaku even took charge of fighting the goblins, but they were also doing it to guard against the delinquents. Back when skills were being chosen, they had seen those guys take charm and puppet. They had to work hard to level up so they could protect their classmates. But while they were improving their skills, the delinquents were improving too. However, the otaku group heard every word they said. All of their filthy intentions were discovered by the otaku. They immediately reported it to the class rep. So the class rep made up her mind to level up too. But a few days later, the delinquents successfully unlocked puppet and charm. Right then, the class rep happened to pass by. With disgusting looks on their faces, they tried to attack her. But in the very next second, the class rep took all of them down. Then the otaku group used a sealing skill to lock away both their charm and puppet powers. With their slave harem plan exposed, the delinquents were kicked out of camp. Everyone thought the matter was over. But not long after, those delinquents returned. They launched an indiscriminate attack on the students. They even set all the tents on fire. After causing chaos, they simply walked away. With the base destroyed, everyone blamed the Otaka group. The Jaru group was the worst. They said it was because the Otaka showed off, that the delinquents targeted them. In the end, only the class rep defended them. The Otaka group felt responsible, so they left the camp on their own. After hearing their story, Haruka was deeply moved. To reward them, he pulled out a huge pile of mushrooms. He lacked many things right now, but mushrooms were not one of them. The Otaka group finally enjoyed a long-awaited full meal. The next day, Haruka gave them a huge amount of mushrooms for the road. The Otaka group wanted to invite Haruka to come with them. They planned to follow the river, till they eventually reached a town. Haruka was their classmate too, so they thought he should come along. But Haruka had already decided to live as a loner, so he rejected them in style. The otaku was stunned by how cool he looked. In the end, they had no choice but to leave him behind. After they left, Haruka went to check on the other classmates. On the way, he was attacked by a dog-like monster, and even got bitten once. Who knows if rabies shots exist in another world? He walked until night, and finally reached the original camp, but he found nobody there. Following his skills guidance, he headed toward the opposite riverbank. Who knew he would run into the Jaru group there? He originally wanted to run away, but they spotted him first. The Jaru group chased after Haruka aggressively. Haruka did not want to turn back, but he heard them begging him to stop. After asking what was going on, he learned they were looking for the Otaku group. Apparently, because Haruka usually got along with the Otaku, they wanted to ask him, but Haruka did not want to reveal the Otaku group's location so easily. It turned out the Jaru only wanted to apologize to them. Only now did they realize that they had been protected by the Otaku all along. If this had happened back on Earth, Haruka would never have imagined it, but he still refused to tell them where the Otaku were to make them give up. Haruka had no choice but to say something harsh. Those words hit the Jaru hard. His words directly hurt their feelings. In the end, they actually started crying. They said tearfully that they only wanted to apologize. Haruka was stunned. This plot development felt completely wrong. They also begged Haruka to teach them wilderness survival and how to defeat monsters until they found the Otaku group. Because of their strange request, Haruka's taming skill activated too. Now Haruka was even more confused. How did he suddenly end up with 3 Jaru followers? For the next while, the Jaru group followed Haruka everywhere, but the effect of this skill was way too strong. They moved like puppets. Their eyes were empty, as if they had lost all reason. They obeyed anything Haruka told them to do. It was like they were acting on pure instinct. Even when they got hurt, they did not know to use potions. Haruka completely broke down. If the class rep saw this, she would tear him apart with lectures. He sat on the ground and drew circles by himself. His head was full of images of the class rep scolding him. Little did he know, speak of the devil, the class rep had just walked nearby. She called out to Haruka for a long time, but he was so focused that he did not hear her. In the end, her angry shout scared him half to death. Meanwhile, the delinquent group camping in the forest had already started planning their next move. Haruka never expected that right after he turned the Jaru group into obedient followers, his childhood friend, the class rep, would find out. Not only that, all the girls in class had come too. The class rep noticed the Jaru group acting strangely and looked at Haruka with suspicion. Haruka knew he could not explain this away, so he had no choice but to tell them everything. It was supposed to be a monster taming skill, but it had worked on the Jaru. The girls' eyes turned ice cold. Surely one of them had ice magic. Haruka could not defend himself. He could only try to slip away, but the girls were not letting him go that easily. Then the class rep tried waking up the Jaru. Unexpectedly, it actually worked. So the class rep decided to ask the Jaru for the truth. She also told Haruka to stand still. Haruka felt wrong too. Ever since accidentally controlling the Jaru group, he had felt how terrifying they could be. Every day, they either dragged him around or took charge of everything. And now, there was also the class rep who had handled the delinquents. Haruka only dared imagine things. He did not dare take any real action. Right now, he only worried whether they would beat him into slime. While the girls discussed what to do next, Haruka got bored and started testing his skills. Somehow, he tested until he buried himself in the dirt. He looked ready to meet his ancestors. The class rep did not expect him to have such weird hobbies. She pulled him straight out of the ground. You can call me whatever you want. For the first time, Haruka felt this weak and helpless. After discussing it, the girls asked Haruka how many people his home could hold. After thinking about it, Haruka said it could hold 240 people. When the girls heard that, their whole worldview collapsed. Had he not entered this world only a few hours before them? Why did he seem like a local now? So they asked Haruka if they could stay at his home for a while. After all, the girls needed a safe place to spend the night. At that moment, Haruka's imagination almost ran out of control. He instantly felt far too excited. If the class rep had not been beside him, he might have lost his mind on the spot. So the girls followed Haruka back to his cave. Seeing this place that looked like a modern mansion, every girl became extremely excited. They immediately rushed to change and wash up. Seeing clothes drifting down in front of him, Haruka felt like his soul had ascended to heaven. The girls were all bathing. Haruka's mind completely wandered. How could such happiness exist? Even after going to bed that night, his imagination kept running wild. Being surrounded by so many girls from class was something ordinary people could never imagine. Still, he loved sleeping alone the most. For the first time, he felt that not being a loner could be pretty nice. Just then, the class rep came to his tent. She thanked him sincerely. Without Haruka, the girls would not have known what to do. Ever since the otaku group left camp, the girls had been living helplessly, never knowing where their next meal would come from. She never expected to find such a comfortable place. There were luxurious rooms, a kitchen for cooking, and even a bathroom. It restored all of their energy. Seeing how capable Haruka was, the class rep felt terrible about herself. She had failed to keep the class united. Instead, everyone had fallen apart. Haruka comforted her and said she had done great. After all, today she had protected so many girls. But the class rep still felt it was not enough. She could not do things like the otaku group could. But Haruka did not think so. Those otaku read novels and manga every day. They had practically trained for an Isekai situation. The class rep did not read novels every day. So of course she would feel lost. But Haruka's comfort did not make her feel better. Instead, she felt that saying that was unfair to the otaku. Haruka did not care about that. In his eyes, the class rep was still the best. Because of his words, the class rep felt much happier. She even praised Haruka for being amazing. He had given everyone such a good life. Her adorable expression nearly overwhelmed Haruka. That night, he still could not sleep. His mind was full of the girls and everything that had happened. The next morning, the purple-haired girl came to wake him up. Still half asleep, he did not react right away. Seeing a girl in a school uniform leaning close to his face, Haruka felt like getting up right now would be dangerously awkward. However, his desire to eat fish defeated every distracting thought. The moment he heard breakfast was fish, he instantly jumped up without thinking. He cried while eating fish. This was basically a gift from heaven. The class rep and the purple-haired girl were speechless. Why would anyone cry while looking at fish? Only Haruka understood that pain. Every day he had eaten mushrooms while staring at fish in the river and crying. That was the pain of never catching anything. Seeing Haruka look so pitiful, the class rep felt bad for him. So she used her cheat ability. For the first time, the fish was struck down by lightning. Magic. They were caught instantly. Seeing such powerful magic, Haruka was incredibly jealous. He asked her to demonstrate it again. Then, while she was showing him, he used wrapping magic to capture the lightning. With that, he caught fish from the river. Just like that, this guy learned lightning magic too. The class rep was stunned. How could he even do that? When Haruka explained that he used wrapping magic, both of them agreed that he was basically cheating, but Haruka was still very low-key. Besides, even he was shocked. This was his first time using that kind of magic too. After that, he asked the class rep what they planned to do next. When he learned they wanted to head to town and level up, Haruka thought the plan made sense. After all, heading to town was definitely the best choice, and the Jaru group had already said earlier that they wanted to find the otaku group in town to help the Jaru succeed. Haruka began his own little class. First, he checked everyone's abilities. Then he discovered their levels were terrifyingly high. Even the lowest was level 16. What was he supposed to teach? He was only level 7. Any random one of them could beat him into paste. These cheat players had no idea how strong they really were. They even urged Haruka to hurry and start the lesson. Maybe this was what it meant to not know your own blessings. To help everyone level up, Haruka told the girls to first try defeating kobolds in the forest. After all, these kobolds were adorably stupid. And only level 3. With the Jaru levels being so high, this should have been a total stomp. They were full of confidence. But unexpectedly, not even 2.5 minutes later, they all got completely beaten down. Haruka was speechless. How could they be this bad? The girls each had plenty of excuses. They said nobody told them kobolds bite. Haruka was depressed. If kobolds do not bite, are they supposed to act as bodyguards? After reviewing tactics inside the tent, they were once again fired up and ready to hunt. Although their strength was not great, their fighting spirit was pretty good. Just then, the purple-haired girl who had woken Haruka that morning suddenly apologized to him because of the previous delinquent attack. She had become afraid of boys. That was why she treated Haruka that way. But now she was not scared anymore. After all, Haruka had not only given everyone a place to stay, but also taught them how to fight. So tomorrow morning, she decided to make him a delicious breakfast. If this guy were not a loner, he might have started an Isekai harem by now. Unfortunately, all waiting for him was grilled fish, not romance. Early the next morning, These fearless girls actually wanted to go hunt monsters. Fortunately, the class rep stopped them. She decided they should start with training. Under Haruka and the class rep's guidance, the Jaru group's special training officially began, but the kobolds' combat ability was still a bit better than the Jaru group's. And whenever these girls had to fight, they got sleepy, or even pretended to be sick. How were they supposed to fight? However, the kobolds did not care whether they were sick. They immediately attacked. At that moment, the purple-haired girl struck first. Then the Jaru group's leader appeared too. Thanks to the Jaru group's effort, the kobolds were finally defeated. The class rep was extremely excited, but unexpectedly, these kobolds were captured too. They even shook hands with the Jaru group. The girls let their imaginations run wild and even wanted to tame them. Because of all the brutal training recently, Haruka was completely exhausted. He collapsed onto the ground. The class rep looked at him with deep gratitude. She wanted Haruka to go to town with her, although he only wanted to stay a loner. This was the class rep's request. There was no way he could refuse. So all the girls finished preparing, carried a huge bag of mushrooms, and set out toward town. Seeing everyone so relaxed, Haruka did not want to discourage them. He only encouraged the class rep and said they should work hard to reach town together. Unfortunately, that very night, some of the boys in class were attacked by a mysterious person. To protect the girls from the delinquent group's attacks, Haruka decided to cross the forest with them. On the way, they encountered a giant boar monster. As someone who hunted every day, Haruka naturally stood in front of the girls. He told everyone to observe his movements and use them as a reference for combat. When the boar monster slammed its hammer into the ground, it found that it had hit nothing. Haruka was hiding behind a tree, mocking it for being too slow. The otaku group had warned Haruka earlier that the boar monster's armor was extremely high. However, its magic resistance was only average, so it had to be attacked with focused magic to barely defeat it. Haruka was not stupid enough to fight it head-on, so he hid and searched for magic skills he could use. Normally, magic skills were divided into fire, earth, water, and wind. But on Haruka's system screen, those 4 elements had been merged into one. Now, the only thing he could not use was light magic. Everything else had been stolen. Using wrapping magic, just as he was celebrating that trash skills had finally found their moment, a massive wolf head flew over him. The tree behind him was smashed in half. This boar monster actually had no honor and attacked by surprise. Luckily, Haruka reacted fast enough and dodged every attack. Its arrogant behavior instantly angered Haruka. With one flash step, he flew above the boar monster's head. Unexpectedly, the boar monster collapsed on the spot. That completely caught Haruka off guard. Seeing the girls' resentful stares, he quickly explained that next time he would definitely fight according to the otaku group's information. Very soon, they ran into another boar monster. This time, Haruka did not dare forget the demonstration. A ball of flame rose in his hand. This was fire magic, derived from temperature magic. Just like that, he casually tossed it toward the boar monster's head. Unexpectedly, the monster died just like that. Haruka was speechless. What happened to its thick skin? How did he kill it so casually? The girls behind him complained even more. From beginning to end, there was no combat technique at all. How were they supposed to learn from that? Haruka could only laugh awkwardly. That night, the girls gathered together and ate barbecue. Haruka hid alone in the corner and used earth magic to make several traps, with the tense monster repelling and protection systems. The girls' safety was guaranteed. Then he opened the system screen again and discovered his appraisal skill had expanded into a map skill. This was perfect for both home and travel. Just as he was studying where to go next, the system suddenly gave a warning. Several figures then appeared nearby. Haruka thought it was the delinquent group, so he watched them nervously. When the figures approached, he realized it was the muscle group. Haruka breathed a sigh of relief. These people did not have as many schemes. At that moment, the class rep also walked nearby. Haruka assumed the muscle group had come to find the girls. But surprisingly, they were here for him. Did their muscles look tough? But their hearts were soft. Haruka curiously asked why they did not appear in front of the girls. The boys hesitated and said they could not trust anyone because someone had a skill called plunder. This skill was even more dangerous than charm and puppet. The delinquents were excited about charm and puppet, but they had never mentioned this skill. That meant someone else must have it. Hearing that, Haruka looked at them with a villainous expression. He asked what they would do if that skill belonged to him. But they said if that were the case, they would actually feel relieved. Haruka suddenly felt completely disappointed. After that, the muscle group told Haruka to be careful. They would go deeper into the forest to monitor the delinquents. The class rep and the others would be left to Haruka. Watching them leave, Haruka still did not forget to tease them. He told them to go find goblins if they ran into trouble. Since they were all idiots, they would probably have common ground. Early the next morning, because they still had to move through the forest, every girl prepared her weapon. Haruka was speechless. Why were they so excited this early? Did they eat poisonous mushrooms or something? just as he was about to scout ahead. The class rep found him. Last night, she had overheard the muscle group's conversation with Haruka. Then she suddenly apologized to him. Haruka immediately figured it out. The class rep could not understand why he was not afraid of her. After all, plunder was a terrifying skill that stole someone's life and took their skills. At the same time, most people would definitely be scared, but Haruka was not worried at all. If someone else had it, they might abuse it. But the class rep would never use that skill for evil. After all, not every class rep was this kind and adorably pure, and earlier, the Otaku group had sealed the delinquent's 2 skills, but did not seal hers. That proved the Otaku trusted her. Those words nearly moved the class rep to tears. Haruka wanted to tease her a little, but her sincere gaze and words scared him into retreat. After walking for quite a while, everyone finally decided to rest. Haruka used the chance to mess around. He pulled out a box and said he was selling juice, but something this good obviously could not be free. Since they had no money, they would have to pay with beauty instead. Seeing a girl teasingly lift her clothes, Haruka's heart nearly exploded. Unfortunately, one look from the class rep scared him stiff. After a short rest, they continued forward. By now, everyone was thirsty and exhausted. Luckily, Haruka discovered a river not far away. He just happened to remember a new skill he wanted to test. After sending the class rep away, he immediately ran toward the river. Once nobody was behind him, he first used mana wrap to coat his entire body in mana. Then he used weight control to make his body lighter. And just like that, he gracefully launched himself into the sky. But he only remembered how to go up. He forgot how to come back down. After swimming through the air for 2.5 seconds, he crashed hard toward the ground. If he had not strengthened his body with mana wrap, his health bar would have been completely emptied. When he returned to camp that night, the class rep was stunned. How did someone go scouting and end up looking like this? Haruka tried to make up an excuse and brush it off, but he still could not escape a lecture from the class rep. He pulled out the fruit he had worked so hard to gather. But it did nothing against the class rep. It did, however, attract the other girls. Thanks to Haruka scouting the route yesterday, the journey went extremely smoothly. They helped a lost child find his mother, watched the girls playing in the water, and even ran into another boar monster attack. After pushing through all kinds of trouble, the group finally made it out of the forest, seeing the vast plain in front of them. All the girls were overjoyed. But Haruka still did not relax. After all, danger was everywhere. He opened the system screen again and realized he had learned a new skill called Air Step. To his surprise, it actually let him walk through the air. Seeing Haruka run into the sky by himself, the class rep was terrified. She immediately started lecturing him like a worried mum. Haruka used clairvoyance to survey the area. Then he discovered natives of this world. They seemed to be under attack by monsters. Haruka told the class rep what he saw. The kind class rep thought they should hurry and help. Haruka immediately rejected that naive idea. They did not know whether those people were good or bad. If they were thieves or bandits, the girls would be in danger. He originally did not want to get involved, but the class rep suddenly grabbed him. The class rep's answer was exactly what Haruka expected. He did not argue further. Instead, he decided to go alone. After all, he had come along specifically to handle situations like this. Next came Haruka's chance to show off. He prepared to use the same combo skill from yesterday. As the 2 skills stacked together, Haruka slowly rose up. This time, he even added wind magic to himself, just as Haruka was admiring his own genius. He realized the class rep was hanging behind him. Apparently, his wind magic had pulled her in too. She quickly screamed for him to stop. Unfortunately, this move could go up, but not land safely. And so, Haruka took the class rep on another world crash landing. The natives were completely speechless at the sudden explosion. Meanwhile, the monsters were instantly killed by Haruka and the class rep's impact. Thanks to Haruka, these people were saved. Then the captain Ofta explained to Haruka that they were adventurers from the Adventurers Guild. They had accepted a job to escort goods. They thought they would make good money. But now the carriage had overturned, and the goods were scattered everywhere. They had suffered a terrible loss, since the girls had not arrived yet, and the class rep was still unconscious. Haruka decided to get on good terms with them. He brought out his specialty grilled mushrooms. After eating one, Gatsuki was stunned. He never expected Haruka to eat this well every day. These were actually rare stamina mushrooms. After the others ate them, their energy and spirit were fully restored. Soon, the class rep woke up too, but the moment she opened her eyes, she saw Haruka enter attack mode. Seeing 2 grown men party with a pretty girl made him extremely unhappy. Before long, the girls caught up too. They traveled together with the adventurer party for a while. Finally, they saw the town they had dreamed of. To commemorate this historic moment, everyone held hands. Meanwhile, back in the forest, the delinquent still had no idea the girls had reached town. After finally raising their levels, they were already losing patience. They were ready to find the girls and have their fun. But before that, They planned to kill the Otaka group first and release the seals on Charm and Puppet. The muscle group hid behind a tree, looking extremely tense as they listened to the evil plan. After a series of adventures, Haruka finally brought the girls safely into town. Seeing so many people and this exotic town, the girls were in a great mood. Unfortunately, because of his loner trait, Haruka felt completely out of place. But his mission was now complete. He had planned to return to the forest and continue his peaceful life. But dreams are beautiful, and reality is brutal. Because the class rep was there, Haruka could not escape at all. He could not even relax in secret without getting scolded. Then she blew a whistle. After so many days of training, all the girls had become as obedient as loyal dogs. In 2.5 seconds, they were all assembled. Then the class rep announced the schedule. First, they would go to the Adventurers Guild and exchange their loot for money. Then they would register as adventurers. Finally, they would rest at an inn together. Along the way, they could also ask around for news about the Otaka group. The Jaru group instantly complained. How could finding the Otaka be treated as a side task? Seeing how nervous she looked, Haruka's gossip radar instantly activated. He teased her with a sly grin, making the Jaru extremely embarrassed. Soon, the group arrived at the Adventurers Guild. But every adventurer inside looked terrifying. Their gazes toward Haruka were full of killing intent. Then, Ofta called Haruka to meet the guildmaster with him. Even if a dragon's den waited ahead, he had no choice but to go. He told the class rep to help the girls register as adventurers first, then went upstairs alone. The red-haired man he had saved earlier was already waiting outside the guildmaster's office. He looked like the friendliest person there. As for the guildmaster, he was even scarier. His entire body was covered in scars. Haruka thought he was about to be thrown out. But in the next second, the guildmaster's attitude made a complete 180. Haruka was confused. A second ago, they looked ready to kill him. How did this turn into an award ceremony? Still, this was better than getting beaten up. Haruka quickly went downstairs. He happened to notice the trading counter, so he went over to sell magic stones. The glasses girl at the counter told him to place the stones in the window. Haruka looked around for a while, but did not know where to put them. The glasses girl was about to mock him. But the next second, she saw a huge bag of magic stones pour out. Now she was the one dumbfounded. The guild did not have enough money to pay him. He could only wait until tomorrow. Just then, the class rep returned with the girls after finishing registration. No one expected these schoolgirls to all be above level 30. In an instant, the adventurers there all acknowledged them. Sure enough, this world still respected strength above all. Next, it was Haruka's turn. If those girls could become adventurers that easily, his own registration should be effortless. He could finally say goodbye to being identityless. Haruka walked in with a proud expression. The class rep had high expectations too. After all, Haruka had protected everyone the whole way. That was how they reached town safely. Unfortunately, greater hope meant greater disappointment. Because Haruka's level was too low, he did not qualify to become an adventurer. A difference of only one level completely shattered Haruka's dream. But rules were rules. Even if Haruka knelt and begged while crying, there was nothing she could do. Besides, only party adventurers could get a level exception. For solo registration like Haruka's, he had to reach level 20 to become an adventurer. This time, Haruka completely despaired. Level 20 was far too distant for him. And his loner skill kept him from joining a party. This was basically targeting him. Was he doomed to live as a shut-in forever? Seeing Haruka completely depressed, the class rep decided to let everyone through the next steps. That night, everyone finally arrived at the inn recommended by the guild. The bright nightlife atmosphere stunned Haruka. When the inn staff came out to welcome them, Haruka only wanted to know whether this was an otherworld love hotel. In reality, he was dreaming too much. After seeing the inside, he confirmed that it really was just an ordinary inn. Soon, everyone fell asleep. Only Haruka remained awake. Although sleeping in a bed was comfortable, he still preferred living in the forest. The next day, after asking around, the class rep learned this town was very safe. It also had all kinds of shops. Seeing that the girls had settled into town life, Haruka planned to collect the money from selling the stones and return to the forest. But even after a whole day, the guild still had not gathered enough money, because Haruka had brought out way too many magic stones. The guildmaster hoped he would accept payment in installments. Even so, Haruka's first payment alone was a full 8 million. At last, he had turned his life around. In fact, his earnings were not just from magic stones. Even the reward for defeating the magic wolf earlier was included. Now that he had money, the class rep prepared to take everyone shopping. Then the red-haired man mysteriously told Haruka about a place filled with every man's dream. True Bros did not need many words to understand. Haruka's first thought was a shop full of beautiful older women. Although he said it sounded improper, his body honestly followed along. But unexpectedly, the red-haired man brought him to a weapon shop. This place specialized in special labyrinth items. Although the owner looked dried out, he was actually very nice. Since Haruka had already come, he started choosing items. At first, he was just looking. But then he wanted to buy everything. Soon, night arrived again. Haruka found a necklace. Called the seven-handed accessory, he noticed it had the same description as the villager set. After asking about it, he learned this item could stack one item's ability onto another item. That allowed one item to serve two purposes. Just as he wondered how to use such a good item, the class rep appeared again. It was already late at night. Everyone else had gone to sleep. Like a worried mum, she ordered Haruka to go back and sleep immediately. Haruka held a parasitic vine and begged her to let him test it first. But the item suddenly started glowing on its own. Not only did it scare Haruka, it also fused together all the items he had just selected. Haruka was instantly dumbfounded. The shop owner nearly exploded too. The items from earlier were worth over 10 million in total. Hearing that, Haruka completely broke. After the red-haired man and the class rep pleaded for him, the price was finally cut down to 8 million. But the 8 million Haruka had barely earned was instantly gone again. In one move, he returned to poverty. He still did not have adventurer status, so he could not use a pass to leave town. Even if he tried to sneak out with the girls, the class rep would immediately catch him and drag him back. Now he could not make money or leave. Haruka missed his forest more and more. Luckily, he had plenty of items now. Through his earlier fusion, the villager cloak gained invisibility. Wearing the invisibility cloak, he used presence, concealment, and stealth. He easily walked through the group of girls, left the inn successfully, and began breathing the air of freedom. Haruka thought hope was right ahead. He reached the city wall and leaped upward. But a girl suddenly called out from behind him. As a result, he completely failed to stop himself. His lower body slammed straight into the wall. Just watching it felt painfully brutal. He never expected to run into these girls here too. Back at school, these girls had been the famous brainless for heavenly queens. But then he suddenly realized one of the four was missing. Usually the answer would be nearby. Sure enough, the remaining girl was shopping at a nearby stall, and her clothes were almost falling off. Half her chest was already exposed. Back at school, she had always loved stripping and running around. The others quickly rushed over to stop her. After being scolded by Haruka and the girls, she crouched on the ground, feeling wronged. Haruka had no choice but to comfort her. He said the outfit suited her well. Unfortunately, because of the four heavenly queens, Haruka's first escape plan completely failed. The next day, the class rep prepared to take everyone on their first mission. Because Haruka's escape had failed yesterday, the class rep banned him from going with them today. But that was exactly what Haruka wanted. Wearing his invisibility cloak, he easily walked out through the city gate. His beloved forest was not far away, but his journey was way too rough. First, there was a ruined village, then came a group of goblins. After that, he saw a carriage being robbed. Hearing someone crying for help from inside the carriage, Haruka originally wanted to save them, but his desire to go home defeated his kindness. At this moment, he wanted nothing to do with it. Unfortunately, those bandits were really begging to die. Since they had been seen, they had to silence the witness. Haruka was speechless. He only wanted to go home. How did he offend anyone? The bandits thought Haruka looked like an easy target and had no intention of letting him go, so Haruka had no choice but to attack first. One fireball nearly sent them to heaven. Unfortunately, their health bars were too thick, so they did not die. They assumed Haruka was a mage, so they planned to close the distance, but he easily knocked them down anyway. One bandit questioned whether Haruka was really a mage, but Haruka accidentally revealed that he did not have a job class. The bandits were instantly shocked. If close combat and ranged attacks did not work, then they would use weapon skills. Haruka knew very well that these were moves only people over level 20 could use. Once a skill was chosen, the body would move on its own. Luckily, those guys only looked strong because of their skills. They had no real ability themselves. Not a single attack hit Haruka. Soon, the three of them exhausted themselves. Haruka won by doing almost nothing. Just then, the noble girl from the carriage came up to Haruka and thanked him. She introduced herself as Mariel. Haruka really did not want to get involved in anything unrelated. He only wanted to hurry back to the forest, but Mariel said she was the daughter of the nearby town's lord. She hoped Haruka would escort her home. Afterward, there would be a reward. The moment Haruka heard about benefits, he agreed. In the carriage, Mariel asked where he came from, but Haruka could not remember the town's name. He even insulted the place while talking. But who could have known? This girl was the daughter of that town's lord. The identity she had been proud of was instantly crushed by his words, and the carriage's final destination was naturally the very town Haruka had just escaped. And so, Haruka's second escape plan failed in style. Meanwhile, the muscle group was preparing to fight the delinquents. But right as the battle was about to begin, a mysterious person suddenly appeared. The delinquents looked at the mysterious attacker in front of them and rushed in one by one to die. Soon, they were all defeated. Seeing that terrifying figure, the muscle group was so scared they ran, but the mysterious person jumped once and landed directly in front of them. He dragged his greatsword closer and closer, but he did not attack. When the muscle group saw his face clearly, they were too shocked to speak. At that moment, Haruka knew nothing about what had happened in the forest. As the sky grew dark, he returned to the city again while crying in despair. Hearing Haruka wailing, Mariel thought he hated this town so much that he wanted to escape desperately. Her heart took 10,000 points of damage. She had no idea what her father's territory had done to offend him, or why he hated it so much. Seeing Mariel on the verge of tears, Haruka had no choice. He could only obediently follow Mariel to her home. After living in a cave for so long, this was his first time seeing such a luxurious house. As expected, nobles had no humanity. A house this big made Haruka extremely uncomfortable. He wandered around the living room, then prepared to slip away. But before he reached the door, Mariel caught him. She had only changed clothes, yet Haruka was already trying to escape again. Mariel puffed like a steam engine, angry enough to let out little huffs. Her cheeks puffed so high they nearly touched the sky. How could she not understand what Haruka was thinking? As the Lord's daughter, she had already prepared a huge table of food to welcome Haruka. If he left now, where would her pride go? But the moment Haruka saw the table full of food, he ate like he had been starving for centuries. He completely devoured everything. Mariel started questioning her life. She was clearly an important person, and a beautiful girl too, yet Haruka only had eyes for the food. Then she had a servant bring out a bag of reward money and place it in front of him, knowing he had no official identity. She even prepared a black gold ID card for him. The town's name was carved on it too. With this, he could freely enter and leave the town. Mariel had only one request. She hoped Haruka would remember the name of this town. Sadly, he did not hear a word she said. His mind was completely on the food. This feeling of being ignored was a first for Mariel. To welcome Haruka today, she had even dressed herself up. She never expected to lose to a table of good food. The next day, Haruka was surrounded and interrogated by the girls. Although he explained that he had gone to the Lord's house last night, the class rep and the others cared more about what Haruka had done to get invited there. Of course, he could never admit he had been escaping. So Haruka played dumb the whole time. After the questioning finally ended, the girls prepared to continue their missions. Before leaving, the class rep reminded him again and again that he absolutely must not run away. Haruka agreed way too quickly. The moment they left, he immediately got ready to move. Now he had an ID card and the girls were gone. Nobody could stop him anymore. But before leaving, he planned to use his reward money to buy proper gear, eat something good, and leave a letter for the class rep. Once everything was ready, he successfully left through the city gate. Freedom was right in front of him. This time, no one stopped him. Haruka finally reached the forest. The familiar mushrooms and river, and those stupid little goblins, all made him feel refreshed. Just as he was thinking about his little home, a boar monster suddenly appeared behind him. With Haruka's current strength, a light strike was enough to knock it unconscious. This kind of monster should have appeared deeper in the forest. Haruka had no time to think about it, but he was very satisfied with his own strength. After fusing so many items, his body was basically loaded with cheats. He had all kinds of abilities. After checking his status panel, he continued forward. Then he saw a pool of blood on the ground. He immediately thought of the Otaka group and the muscle group. And the delinquents had not left the forest either. A bad feeling rose in his mind. With no time to think, he immediately used his search skill. A line of footprints appeared in front of him. What worried him most was that the muscle group and delinquents had fought. And of course, the worst happened. Soon, up ahead, he found the heavily injured muscle group. Rage instantly filled Haruka's heart. He clenched his fists, ready to avenge them. But then he saw that the muscle group was still alive. So he poured healing potions over them, like they were free water. Finally, thanks to that absurd healing power, the long-haired boy slowly woke up. When he learned the girls had safely reached town, he breathed a sigh of relief. But then, like he was giving his final words, he asked Haruka whether they had contributed to the class. Of course, there was no doubt about that. They talked until night. Haruka finally learned what had happened to them. The entire muscle group eventually woke up too. They had been helpless against the mysterious person. Even their weapons had been stolen. The long-haired boy had already guessed the mysterious person's next target. After all, the class rep had the plunder skill. If he obtained that skill, the mysterious person would be unstoppable. But only Haruka and the Otaka group knew that. He never expected the muscle group to know too, because the mysterious person was desperate to know where the class rep had gone. The long-haired boy guessed the secret. The reason he beat them up this badly was to use them to draw out the class rep. The long-haired boy realized that. So he did the opposite and came near Haruka's cave. The blood trail would definitely attract Haruka. With Haruka joining them, they could defeat him. But at that moment, Haruka hesitated. As a loner, as long as he stayed out of this, he would not face any danger. But he had one condition. He wanted to fight alone. The muscle group was stunned. A team battle would clearly have better odds. There was no need to take that risk. But seeing Haruka's determined eyes, they suddenly could not argue. They decided to respect his choice. Haruka gave them a mission too. They had to return and meet up with the class rep, although they were reluctant and did not understand why. The muscle group chose to obey. After they left, Haruka felt a little conflicted. Having backup would be better. But if they were all wiped out, the class rep would be in danger. He had to use the little time he had to make himself stronger. Meanwhile, back in town, the class rep was searching everywhere for the missing Haruka. The other girls were not too worried. They believed he would come back soon. Haruka had already begun preparing from the muscle group. He learned that weapon skills were powerful, but once activated, they could not be cancelled. So now he had to find a way to counter weapon skills. Just then, a group of goblins was drawn in by the smell of blood. Most of them were level 19. Their levels were much higher than Haruka's, but if he wanted to level up, he had no choice but even after defeating those goblins, Haruka's level still did not rise. He urgently needed a stronger enemy to serve as an experience pack. At that moment, his protagonist luck activated. A giant goblin king appeared. This completely matched Haruka's request. Compared with ordinary goblins, the goblin king's combat power was on another level. Even its attack patterns were different. Thanks to the evasion ability added to Haruka's cloak, he managed to dodge its attacks. That helped Haruka confirm one thing. Even if the mysterious person used weapon skills, his cloak might still barely let him dodge, but fighting back would be much harder. So he decided to test his new skill. He used mana wrap, then infused every skill he had into his magic staff. The goblin king was killed in a single blow. Haruka's confidence suddenly surged. This was all thanks to his earlier experiments in the forest. Now he finally had a way to fight. But before he could be happy for even 2 seconds, an even stronger enemy appeared. A level 50 goblin emperor silently appeared behind Haruka. This was basically fighting a boss in the starter village. Haruka was only level 9 right now. Even fighting above his level had limits. He could not escape. He could only try the same method again. He fused and infused all his skills into his staff, creating a new skill called Feint. Then he bet everything and rushed forward at top speed. To his surprise, that move actually knocked the goblin emperor down. But it did not deal any damage. When the goblin emperor stood back up, it slashed Haruka's cheek in one move. Nobody expected this thing could use weapon attacks too. Haruka finally found a chance to injure it. But the enemy could even regenerate. And it knew how to attack during the opening, when Haruka was infusing skills. Now Haruka was in serious danger. But this was no time to give up. He absolutely refused to lose. Here, after standing back up, he roared and charged at the goblin emperor. The two fought until dawn. And when the morning sun rose, Haruka's level finally reached 11. Exhausted, he immediately returned to his base to rest. After that battle, Haruka had not only raised his level, but also mastered new skills. He also understood the effect of his useless skill. His level rose more slowly, but learning skills became easier. Skill levels also increased faster. Now he had fully mastered Feint. This skill had no startup delay, making it perfect for breaking through cheat abilities. At the same time, the mysterious person followed the blood trail to the entrance of Haruka's base. The two finally met, and the mysterious person's identity was finally revealed. It was actually Tanaka, the quiet glasses guy from the delinquent group. He had been enduring humiliation for the chance to become the strongest. Back in town, the girls had finished their commission and were preparing to return, but at the gate they ran into the muscle group. The class rep thought Haruka was with them, but it turned out to be false hope. When she learned that Haruka was fighting alone in the forest, worry immediately appeared on her face. In the forest, Tanaka revealed his entire plan. He was the one who controlled the delinquents and made them attack the class. And aside from the delinquents and the muscle group, he had killed every other boy in class. Tanaka did not take Haruka seriously at all. He was about to leave and search for the class rep, but Haruka would never let him go that easily. A fierce battle was about to begin. Haruka said that even if he was a loner, he still had things he wanted to protect. Tanaka smiled slightly. In that case, he decided to kill Haruka himself. He instantly unleashed terrifying power. He told Haruka that back in the White Room, he had confirmed all of Haruka's selected skills were garbage. So he was absolutely certain Haruka was a useless loser. He randomly summoned a pile of stones and activated his teasing skill, ready to kill Haruka instantly. At the same time, after learning Haruka was fighting alone in the forest, the class rep wanted to rush over immediately. The muscle group quickly stopped her. They told her Haruka would definitely be okay. Going now would only distract him. So the class rep could only stay behind and pray for his safety. Meanwhile, Haruka's movements were extremely heavy because of the teasing skill. Seeing Haruka dodge that attack, Tanaka increased his magic output, but Haruka dodged every shot. That shocked Tanaka. He thought Haruka was nothing but trash, but he had hidden this kind of skill. Before killing Haruka, Tanaka was curious when Haruka started suspecting him. Haruka answered that he had noticed something was off from the start. He could not understand why a lone genius like Tanaka would hang around with the delinquents. That sharp observation made Tanaka admire him a little. Haruka had a question for him too. He wanted to know when Tanaka had started planning all of this. Tanaka admitted that from the moment he gained teasing, he had already been planning it, and as long as he used those brainless delinquents, well, he could become the strongest. After saying that, he bound Haruka with magic and launched a fireball at him. But Tanaka immediately sensed something was wrong. The fireball magic he released had been absorbed by Haruka. The reason Haruka was unharmed was thanks to the parasitic ivy he had fused into his staff. Its effect was absorbing magic. Before Tanaka could use a weapon skill, Haruka charged in to finish him. But Tanaka directly summoned a greatsword and blocked the attack. It turned out he still had a trump card. The reason he had hesitated earlier was because he was deciding which weapon to kill Haruka with. He still had plenty of flashy weapons like that, and he was too lazy to choose. He decided to use every weapon and crush Haruka into despair. Then, Tanaka attacked by constantly switching weapons. Unable to read his attack style, Haruka quickly fell behind. But after several minutes of fighting, he discovered Tanaka had a mimic copy skill. And he guessed Tanaka's real target was the class rep's plunder. If he first mimicked plunder from the class rep, then used plunder to take her ability permanently, he could obtain everything perfectly. Seeing Haruka expose his entire plan, Tanaka simply pulled out a scythe and attacked non-stop. Haruka finally found a chance to get close, but Tanaka used a phantom to dodge. But then Haruka stuck out his tongue and sidestepped Tanaka's attack completely. It turned out his earlier struggling act was fake. He directly revealed that Tanaka's mimic skill could only be used 3 times. Tanaka instantly panicked. He could not understand why his attacks suddenly stopped hitting Haruka. This was nothing like he expected. Earlier, Haruka had been holding back on purpose to find Mimic's weakness. Through their fight, he had learned the traits of Tanaka's mimic skill. As long as he kept dodging, he had a chance to win. Even after being exposed, Tanaka still did not think he could lose. He had as many weapons as he wanted. But what he never expected was that Haruka had already adjusted to his speed and struck him directly in the chest. No matter how many skills Tanaka had, Haruka could now handle him directly. Tanaka was forced back again and again. But this scheming guy still had one hidden trump card. He used all kinds of attacks to distract Haruka. Then he hid in the chaos. By the time Haruka found him, it was already too late. Haruka immediately dropped to his knees. Tanaka walked out from behind him and let out a wild laugh. He had finally defeated Haruka. Tanaka was ecstatic. He stepped on Haruka's head and crushed him mercilessly. But as he turned to leave and search for the class rep, Haruka's voice came from behind him. Tanaka was shocked. He could not understand how a level 11 Haruka had survived his ultimate move. Haruka explained it was because he had the health skill, which treated near death as a status condition, and removed it directly, and he had maxed out his luck stat long ago. So he was basically immune to that skill. His condition from earlier was all an act for Tanaka. He only wanted to force out Tanaka's ultimate move. Tanaka broke down even harder. Haruka had clearly been hit by teasing, so his movement should have been restricted. How could he still move so freely? Haruka asked him whether he knew what the wooden puppet skill was for. Tanaka completely looked down on that garbage skill. He thought only trash would ever use something like that. But in reality, Haruka used wooden puppet to forcibly control his body and move. Those so-called garbage skills were actually full of uses. Tanaka could not accept it. He had so many broken skills. How could he lose to trash like Haruka? He kept swinging his weapons and attacking, but Haruka blocked every strike. Tanaka had completely lost his mind. The plan he had calculated for so long had fallen apart. Haruka told him that back on Earth, 1 + 1 always equaled 2. But in a world of swords and magic, how could rigid calculations possibly work? Here, 1 + 1 should be more than 2. Because this was a world that produced unknown numbers. That completely shattered Tanaka's worldview. Before coming to another world, his life had been dull and boring. School lessons were meaningless to him. Everyone around him seemed stupid. He had no interest in school at all, and wanted to graduate as soon as possible. Then they were transported to another world. That filled him with excitement. The moment he saw the skill board, He realized that with the right plan, he could escape his boring life. After calculating countless possibilities, he found the formula for the most interesting future. Even if that formula required him to kill his classmates, he did not care. In his mind, if he stole everyone's cheat skills, he would become the strongest and most invincible existence, but fate still made him lose to Haruka, a useless guy full of trash skills. He furiously swung his sword at Haruka, but in the next second, Haruka knocked the weapon away. Haruka thought Tanaka had finally run out of options. He was about to finish him off, but he still got hit by Tanaka's hidden powder. Even after being hit, Haruka was still like a cockroach that refused to die. He could not be put down. At that moment, Haruka knocked off Tanaka's glasses, and finally killed him with feint. Haruka told Tanaka that even garbage skills had their uses. He did not have cheat skills, but he understood how to use those bad skills properly. That was the most important part. Haruka had won the battle, but he knew that one mistake back there would have meant his own death. Now that wooden puppet's effect had ended, all the damage he had taken earlier rushed back into his body, and because he had overused his mana, he could not hold on anymore. Just as he was about to collapse, the Otaka group appeared in front of him. It turned out they had gone to explore the labyrinth earlier. After returning to town and hearing about Haruka from the class rep, they came to the forest to support him. With their help, Haruka safely returned to town. When the class rep and the girls saw him, they finally breathed a sigh of relief. The girls surrounded him completely. For a loner like Haruka, this was almost too much. The muscle group came over to high-five him too, while the Jari group apologized to the Otaka group. Haruka secretly slipped away, fully satisfied. He planned to return to the forest and live as a loner again, but the class rep caught him. She ran straight over and hugged Haruka tightly. Hearing that, Haruka thought he had made the class rep cry again. But today, she was not crying, because Haruka had returned safely. That being said, he still could not escape a lecture, so the girls simply carried him away. Haruka never expected that in the end, he still lost to these girls. After returning to town, Haruka suddenly had a strange dream. Deep inside the labyrinth, a mysterious figure seemed to be trapped there, waiting for someone to come rescue her. When he woke from the dream, Haruka thought it felt strange, but he did not take it seriously. After finally waking up early, he went to the tavern and found the Otaka group already there. Recently, they had been actively exploring the labyrinth and defeating monsters besides leveling up and making money. Their real main goal was to obtain a certain treasure inside the labyrinth. It was a rare item that could raise people's affection towards you. That kind of thing was perfect for antisocial otaku like them. But honestly, Haruka was not much better. He had no right to judge them. After the otaku set out, Haruka's little scheme started forming again. Although they were all motivated, his own mission had already been completed. He had no reason to keep staying in town anymore. The forest was his true home. His dream was always to enjoy life as a free loner. Inside his cave in the forest, unfortunately, before he could even act on that idea, it was crushed in the cradle. An ominous aura came from behind him. The class rep glared at him furiously. Her resentment alone could probably kill 100 Harukas. She wanted to have a proper discussion about what happened before. Seeing that she was truly angry, Haruka did not dare joke around anymore. He tremblingly handed over money, hoping to avoid another lecture. After returning yesterday, the girls had already scolded him half to death. But Haruka was still thinking too simply. The girls' lectures were nothing compared to this. He had never experienced the class rep's one-on-one lecture. Seeing the fire in her eyes, Haruka could already imagine his tragic ending. The class rep asked why he had done something so dangerous, and warned him never to do it again. In only 2 sentences, she shattered all his heroic spirit. His knees moved on their own and dropped straight to the floor. Seeing how sincerely he apologized, she finally let him go. To Haruka, the class rep was 10 million times scarier than Tanaka. Mental damage was way stronger than physical damage. His only problem now was figuring out how to return to forest life without getting scolded by her. Maybe if he got that item, he could do whatever he wanted. Once the idea hit, Haruka immediately prepared to search for it. At the same time, inside the Lord's mansion, Mariel brought her brother a cup of hot tea, because the number of monsters had been increasing lately. Her brother's workload had grown heavier too. He often stayed up all night handling official business. Just then, a soldier guarding the labyrinth suddenly rushed in. A huge swarm of monsters had appeared near the labyrinth. Haruka still had no idea disaster was coming. He was casually heading toward the labyrinth. Then his presence detection skill noticed an ominous aura nearby. When he turned around, a boar king had appeared with several underlings. It stood right in front of him, but Haruka was not who he used to be. He decided to use these monsters as a quick warm-up. Back at the Adventurers Tavern, the guildmaster was about to ask the class rep to handle the monsters. Then Muriel rushed in and told everyone about the monster invasion. The situation was terrible. Several villages had already been destroyed. Hearing that, all the adventurers sprang into action. They immediately prepared to move out for everyone's peaceful life. The class rep could not just stand by either. She quickly prepared to tell the other students. But then she realized Haruka had disappeared again. Meanwhile, he was busy fighting the Boar King against monsters everyone else would find terrifying. One slash was enough to erase the boar monsters instantly. Not even scraps were left, although he noticed there were a lot of monsters. Haruka did not take it seriously. At the town entrance, everyone from the Adventurers Guild had their weapons ready. They waited at the gate, refusing to let a single monster near the town. Sadly, all that waiting was basically pointless. Haruka was already fighting the Boar King like crazy. After discovering normal attacks did not work, Haruka simply increased his firepower. He easily brought the monster down. Looking at the dense swarm of boar monsters, he felt a little confused. But right now, finding the rare item mattered most. Soon, he reached the labyrinth. The atmosphere inside was exactly like the novels. Haruka could not help getting excited. He wandered around like this was his backyard, checking here and there. Along the way, he found plenty of treasure chests, but everything inside was basically junk. He did not care for any of it. After searching for a long time, he still found nothing. He started wondering if the labyrinth only had trash. Then, he suddenly remembered the skeleton shopkeeper. So he decided to go back and ask for information about the labyrinth. By now, it was already dark at the town gate. But everyone had still seen nothing at all. Just as they thought the warning might be false, Haruka slowly walked over from the distance. Seeing everyone gathered there, he thought they were having a campfire party. When the class rep said they were protecting the town, he did not dare tell everyone what he had done. But once he learned the monsters they meant were the boar monsters, he finally understood what was going on. When Haruka said he had killed all those monsters himself, everyone was stunned. But when they heard he had treated it like a game, the girls were furious. The class rep even slapped him. He had promised not to do anything dangerous, yet he still ran off recklessly. Even though Haruka had done something incredible, he still could not escape being lectured by everyone. He knelt on the ground, not daring to raise his head, because monster numbers had been increasing recently. The guildmaster guessed the legendary great monster invasion might be starting. Even if Haruka was strong, he could not act carelessly. That night, Haruka lay in bed. He realized that now, not only the girls, but even the guildmaster and Muriel were watching him. That made the rare item mission even more urgent. So the next day, he immediately went to the item shop. The shopkeeper looked nervous the moment he saw him. He was terrified Haruka would fuse all his items again. When he heard Haruka only had questions about an item, he finally relaxed. Then he told Haruka that the rare item was called the pheromone ring. Just hearing the name made it sound amazing. Haruka quickly asked where in the labyrinth the ring was. No wonder he had not found it anywhere. As a rare item, the ring existed in an area no one had explored yet. It should be below the 50th floor. The labyrinth supposedly had 100 floors, but going deeper was not that easy. Every floor had a lord guarding it. Unless that lord was defeated, it was impossible to keep going. Not only that, the labyrinth was wrapped in many legends, and still had countless unsolved mysteries. So if he wanted to explore it, he needed to prepare plenty of recovery potions. Hearing that, Haruka immediately went to stock up. But he had no idea that the Otaka had overheard everything. They turned around and told the girls the news. When the class rep learned Haruka was searching for a ring again, her head started hurting. Why could he never just behave? The other girls were even more worried that nothing good would come of this. So everyone reached the same conclusion. They had to stop Haruka from finding that ring. At that moment, Haruka was heading toward the labyrinth. Then he suddenly sensed an ominous presence again. When he looked back, his classmates had arrived with fierce eyes. He still had no idea his secret had been exposed. He thought they were here to level up. But the class rep did not hide anything. She directly exposed his plan to search for the pheromone ring. Haruka instantly froze. He casually made up a lie, claiming he was looking for Solomon's ring, so he could communicate better with animals. But nobody believed such a wild excuse. Seeing everyone's suspicious eyes, Haruka knew he could not convince them. So he simply ran. The guards at the labyrinth entrance could not stop this huge crowd at all. Seeing the class rep and the others chasing him, Haruka feared they would steal the ring. So he started sprinting. The class rep shouted from behind, telling him to watch out for traps. But Haruka had maxed out luck, so he was not afraid. Of course, the moment he said that, he stepped right on a trap. A huge hole instantly opened in the wall beside him. He failed to react in time and fell straight in. The class rep wanted to save him, but it was too late. She was only one step short. They could only watch as Haruka fell. After falling for who knows how long, Haruka finally saw light. Just as he was about to become a pancake, He cast earth magic on the ground. That let him land safely. He still had no idea where he was. Seeing only one path, he did not dare move. He planned to use air step to go back. But air step was a walking type skill. It could not walk up walls. But unexpectedly, Haruka awakened spatial control and trap detection. That second skill would have been nice a little earlier. Now it was basically too late. It was a useful skill. Haruka activated both skills and scanned the entire labyrinth. To his surprise, he had fallen to the hidden 101st floor. The boss on a floor like this was usually even more terrifying, but he could only force himself to move forward. The passage was filled with thick mist, and blue ghost flames rose around him. The door in front of him gave off an unsettling aura. Haruka gathered his courage and opened it. A terrifying pressure rushed out. Inside the door was a skeletal corpse. It was the legendary Labyrinth Emperor, and its level was a terrifying 100. Meanwhile, the class reps group had reached the 47th floor, but they still had not found Haruka, although portals appeared after defeating floor lords. The otaku believed Haruka probably did not have access to them. After all, his route should have gone from top to bottom. Now they could only pray that Haruka's luck held out. The otaku worried he might meet the legendary Labyrinth Emperor. None of them knew he had already encountered exactly that. Fear spread through everyone's hearts. They wanted to turn back. But when they remembered how hard Haruka had worked for everyone, they united again. They decided to reach the deepest floor and bring Haruka back together. Haruka, however, was under incredible pressure. Facing the Labyrinth Emperor was no joke. Every stat on its panel showed an unknown race. At the highest rank, it was basically the strongest cheat monster in another world. But instead of being afraid, Haruka prepared to attack at close range. The Labyrinth Emperor easily blocked him. That unbelievable, godlike speed did not scare Haruka, it excited him. He immediately used feint, but it was blocked again. Even though it had no effect, Haruka was gradually seeing through the Labyrinth Emperor's ability. He believed his next attack would definitely break through.